So this kit is called the CIA kit. It's chemistry in action, right? But I
Mm,
often refer to it as a lab in a box. So we
okay.
are telling, and the story we're saying is that you don't need a laboratory to learn and to use this kit. You can do it under a tree, you can do it in the field. You just need a space, a safe space to work through the experiments. So we're not saying that you have to incur these huge costs, right? We produce this learning tool, this practical learning tool, which is low cost. It's not reliant on electricity or advanced infrastructure, and it's practical in diverse settings. So any space becomes a laboratory. That's basically what we're saying, and that is how we actually making these learners in these schools which are in rural areas and lack resources and services, that it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. You can use it anywhere and you will still experience what we want you to experience.
The Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Root of Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. If you are new here, welcome to the show. Remember to subscribe and like this episode, and make sure to disseminate it to those who will enjoy this episode. Let's get into today's episode. Have you ever imagined learning science without ever touching a test tube or entering a lab? For many African students, that is the case. Access to science education in Africa is hindered by a lack of inadequate infrastructure and resources like labs, electricity, and internet connectivity, and also a shortage of properly trained teachers. These issues limit the quality of science education, especially at secondary and higher education levels. As a result, the continent struggles with a skills gap and high youth unemployment. Today, we are speaking with Viloshnee Singh, the CEO of V4 Group and the founder of Chemistry in Action. Chemistry in Action is a public benefit organization that is dedicated to improving STEM education across Africa through affordable, curriculum aligned chemistry kits and teacher training programs. Her work aims to inspire the next generation of African scientists and innovators. Let's get into this episode. Hi, Viloshnee. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Anne. Thank you for having me.
It is such a pleasure to have you on, and I'm so excited to chat about you and the incredible work that you do. But before we get into all of that, could you just briefly introduce yourself to our listeners, and tell us more about yourself and the work that you do?
Okay, great. So I'm a geologist, a business development executive, an entrepreneur, and a sustainability activist. I think I'm passionate about science. I'm passionate about making it accessible to the young African youth, empowering them with practical, affordable science education. I think it's important that we make an effort to inspire the youth towards innovation because that's what our continent needs. So in a nutshell, I'm technical expertise with a commitment to social impact.
Oh, fantastic. You did mention that you have various roles. So let's get into like the meat of this. What was that spark, or what was that major reason for you to venture into making science accessible for young people?
Yeah, I think the inspiration came from realizing the urgent need to improve STEM education in especially under-resourced African schools. Traditional teaching methods and lack of laboratory facilities often hinder student engagement when it comes to science. So the vision to provide affordable curriculum-aligned chemistry kits coupled with teacher training to make science hands-on, enjoyable, and relevant, to inspire the next generation of African scientists, because we definitely need them.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So you started Chemistry in Action, as we can see in the lovely logo behind you. Tell us some that story. When did you start this? How long have you been doing, and what exactly do you do with Chemistry in Action?
Okay, so we piloted. So it was conceptualized. Well, it's been conceptualized for a while, things that go on in your head and you think and you like, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. But we actually piloted, and we were thankfully supported by the chemical cheetah in
Mhm.
2022. And we piloted in Gauteng.
Okay.
And basically, what it does is that it provides schools with high quality, affordable kits that align directly with the national curriculum, enabling practical experiments despite resource limitations. So, we also train the teachers to use these kits effectively, boosting teacher confidence and enabling experiential learning. So this approach we feel supports student comprehension, curiosity, and confidence in STEM subjects.
Fantastic. So you mentioned that you work with teachers, which I think is really, really brilliant. So talk us through it. How do you ensure that the chemistry in action kits that you provide are used effectively in the classrooms?
So, by training the teachers, and which we have realized in many schools, many of the teachers themselves have never done chemical experiments.
Mm,
So, in a practical world, if you don't do something practically, how is it possible to relay that to students, right? If you've not had that experience. So, with the teacher training workshops, we really help the teachers by doing the experiments with them so that they understand and that they become more confident because we know everybody's intimidated by chemicals. It's like dangerous. So we kind of really give them the backing to understand that, it is workable, you can do it. And if the teacher is confident in what they're doing, that confidence is then relayed to the learners.
mm.
So by doing hands-on, it transforms abstract and intimidating concepts into tangible experiences. So we building critical thinking, problem solving, and engagement by letting students explore with teachers to discover principles through direct interaction. And this actually improves retention and enthusiasm for science. So it is a value chain that, we from the start, providing the kits, training the teachers, making them confident, letting the teachers teach the learners, making them confident, and finally having a student that is more confident, more passionate, more interested to actually be a scientist.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just thinking about many of us who have had brilliant teachers, one of the main reasons we love a subject is when we love a teacher who teaches the subject. And I think, getting a teacher to be excited and to also enjoy the subject will make a child be like, oh, I love Mr. So and so, Miss and so and how they teach chemistry. So I think that's a nice way of going around the chain because sometimes I don't know. You can sometimes see when a teacher doesn't want to teach a subject, and as a student, you get into the room and you're like, I hate the subject. But you can also feel when a teacher loves the subject, and you as a student, you also get really excited, right?
100%. I mean, that was how I felt about my teachers. I loved all my teachers and I loved their subjects, but certain subjects, right? And
Mm,
and that energy is really what influences the learners. And it's so important because even in grade one, if you love your grade one teacher, you love school and you want to
yes.
go every day. So it's still, even in this age of technology, that emotional connection with teachers is still there, no matter what anybody says. So that's why I felt it's very important that we get the teachers to buy into the concept and we get the
Mhm.
teachers excited about what we're trying to do for STEM, for African STEM. And by getting our teachers bought in, then we are confident our learners are also going to be bought into the concept and going to be excited to do science.
Absolutely. And I'm sure when they become these great scientists who we are expecting them and hoping them to be, they can be like, in grade so and so, I had this amazing teacher, and that's why I love the subject. So that's
100%.
that's pretty exciting. So speaking of the learners, is there a certain age that you start using this career kits at, or is it available from the onset of school?
Okay, and so, I was very intentional when I developed this kit.
Mm,
I felt that there was a gap with the grades 8 and 9, right? I felt that generally there was a lot of focus on grade 12 and matriculating and what you're going to do. But in our curriculum and in this country, in grades 8 and 9, we have to choose subjects to take to
yeah,
grade 10. And
yeah,
I just felt that we were not paying enough attention to those grades. I just felt that we need to intentionally motivate and inspire them into a field because I felt like they were just being forced into to take subjects because everybody
yeah.
else is doing it. It's not really what I want to do. So when I said I was intentional about this kit, the intentionality was to give the grade 8 and 9 learners an opportunity to experience science, to experience chemistry, the practical aspect of it, and to fall in love with what it does. Now,
Mm,
we know science is very broad, right? There's lots of
yeah,
subjects, but I
yeah.
just felt chemistry was the most practically engaging subject where you can smell it, you can see it, you can hear it, you can touch it. I just felt it really activated all our senses. So this kit is directed at grades 8 and 9 in an effort to inspire them and to get them excited about science so that at the end of grade 9, they choose science as a subject going into grade 10.
That's brilliant, and you're right. And great, and it's also that beautiful transition where you come from primary school where you did very basic natural science, as you call it here in South Africa, and then now you're doing more of the start differentiating between the biology, the chemistry, and the physics. So I think it's a great time for them to start understanding these differences and hopefully to get them, like you said, excited about these topics. So, Viloshnee, I want us to then speak about some of these realities of bringing these kids, especially into communities that might lack basic infrastructure like a lab or electricity. How does that work in that case?
Yes, it has been challenging and for those specific reasons. And we've had to be creative and resilient about what we're trying to do. So this kit is called the CIA kit. It's chemistry in action, right? But I
Mm,
often refer to it as a lab in a box. So we
okay.
are telling, and the story we're saying is that you don't need a laboratory to learn and to use this kit. You can do it under a tree, you can do it in the field. You just need a space, a safe space to work through the experiments. So we're not saying that you have to incur these huge costs, right? We produce this learning tool, this practical learning tool, which is low cost. It's not reliant on electricity or advanced infrastructure, and it's practical in diverse settings. So any space becomes a laboratory. That's basically what we're saying, and that is how we actually making these learners in these schools which are in rural areas and lack resources and services that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can use it anywhere and you will still experience what we want you to experience.
So, what is exactly is in a kit? If you care to explain that you say that you don't need any of these resources. So, somebody gets the kit, what would they essentially be getting?
So it's fully kitted. So it's got all the chemicals, obviously in the relevant quantities, because we don't want any unnecessary accidents. So it's got all the chemicals, all the consumables. It's got the PPE, the safety gloves, the masks, the goggles. It's and the equipment in the kit is full, like full glass test tubes,
Wow.
tongs to hold, and it's got the safety cards. So each experiment has a safety card as a card, an experiment card, which is double-sided. On one side of it is the experiment from start to finish with pictures. So it's fully explained. It's got pictures. So we tell them this is what should be happening at this stage. So it is totally student focused because we want the learners to have the experience. We don't want the teachers to demonstrate. that is not the intention. So the learners can absolutely use the kit on their own, right? The only thing it doesn't have is a box of matches for obvious reasons. So that will be supervised by the teacher. But it's
No,
got everything else. So that's what I'm saying, you don't need a fancy laboratory or anything. It's just the learner with the kit and a supervisor to just light that Bunsen burner when it's required. And there's 8 experiments, and we've given enough consumables to maybe do each experiment 3 times if they
oh,
want, right? But not so much of chemicals that it's going to be a problem. And obviously, it should be supervised. That's all we're saying. We're saying we just want it's supervised whether by a student teacher or a teacher, but it does not need to be heavily supervised because the learners can actually do everything themselves.
that's so brilliant. And it's really exciting that everything is already there. So you've been doing this for a couple of years now. And I want us to then talk about some of the challenges. So what are some of the challenges that you faced in scaling this project or initiative? And as you answer that, I'd also like you to tell us what has that taught you in the process of running a social impact initiative that focuses on education?
Yeah, and lots of challenges. I mean, logistics, funding constraints, reaching remote areas. Um, it has been challenging, but also one of the key aspects of having a STEM-based social impact project is the culture shift.
Okay.
So in a lot of schools, because how they teaching science, if they are teaching science, because there are schools who are not teaching science, right? They're
Mm.
not teaching science. I was horrified, but they're not teaching science. They like reading experiments from a book. Or if they have technology, they're watching a video, but they're not practically getting their hands dirty and they're not practically experiencing the excitement of doing an experiment. So so it's so important to actually to teach the teachers why it's important that students do practical experiments. And when I
Mm.
say it's a culture shift from not having ever done that, it's very hard to actually convince them that this is the best way to learn. So that has been the challenge. It has taken a lot of conversations, a lot of practical demonstrations to make them understand. And they're not fully convinced even when we do a project, right? So we have to hope that while they work with it, they actually get to it. But a lot of the teachers that we've workshopped, they come to me and they say, this has been so amazing, and I wish I had this when I was a student, because then I could have been a scientist. That has
Uh,
happened so many times. They said we
yeah.
didn't have these tools, and it's like I feel so bad because I feel like they could have had other career choices, and they were like, just had to settle. So I think the partnerships with community, the partnerships with the schools, partnerships with funders, the transparent communication, the constant communication about impact and sustainability is also important when we trying to do these projects. And it takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes commitment, and it takes diligence and resilience. And yeah, I'm sure you've probably experienced that in your work as well. But yeah, it's tough. It is tough.
I can imagine, but you know what they say, all great things are not easy. So it will take a lot of effort, but the work that you're doing is so important. While you're speaking about changing the culture, it got me thinking, so what do you think is the issue? Is it the way that the teachers are being taught how to teach the science? That could be a fundamental problem at FETs or universities or teacher training colleges. Is that where the issue is? Because they are teaching how they've been taught to teach, right?
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the reasons it's all very closed and boxed,
Mm.
This is how it needs to be done, and this is how we should be doing it. And you don't blame them, right? But
Yeah.
also, science, as you've mentioned, is an intimidating subject.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and in I mean, growing up when I was in school, it was like the culture was that science are reserved for the very intelligent students, right? And that is what exactly. And I'm like now over 50. So forever we've been teaching that science is for the intelligence. And I'm like, if you're passionate about anything, you can do well at it. So
Mm.
how do we get that message across to the learners?
Mm.
If you're passionate, you can do it. So science is not reserved for the intelligent. It's reserved for those who are passionate about it. And if you think about it, it's like we're not educating our learners about how vast science is.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not just for doctors, it's not just for pharmacists. Science is in everything. It's chefs, it's engineers, it's every single thing is science. So that's what I'm saying, how do we get that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to say everything in your life is science. So how can you not want to know more?
Precisely, every single thing is made up of everything related to science. And um, I think this is also something that I've also been trying when I go to schools as well, to get learners to understand that it's not just being a doctor or an engineer, but it's so broad. And even in conversations with many people who I've had who are involved in STEM, I also get like shocked that wait, this is another area that you can get into. So I think it's really good to get people at this right age where you can really plant that seed and help somebody venture into a path that they didn't even know existed, which is the issue as well. Yeah.
100%. 100%, Anne.
So, you touched on, the importance of working with collaboration with funders, with the community, with the schools, etc. So, what kind of support do organizations like yourself need to reach more schools, not only in South Africa, but I'm sure the dream is to go Africa and even maybe the world, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So, so obviously um, the biggest aspect that we're looking for is that partnerships, partnerships with large organizations to support the initiative. Um, you know, so and that requires funding. It requires access to networks. As you mentioned, we want to expand, but I want to keep it in Africa. I
Okay.
think we have enough. I think I'm very focused on Africa. I've done a lot of work across Africa for many years in the resources sector. So I'm passionate about Africa and the
Yeah.
African youth. So for me, it's about keeping it in Africa. So what we're looking for is partnerships with governments, NGO funders, and industry to create a sustainable ecosystem for the education to reform, right? And
Mm.
even though we just one aspect, and there's lots of other organizations that are tackling all the other aspects,
Yeah. Yeah.
as we need to collaborate with each other to actually be able to tackle STEM as a total solution, which is what we want to do. So the funding, the access to networks, we want to also add some digital aspects to our product. We want to be able to give it a better reach across Africa. And we know how everything is moving towards AI. So we want help to actually add some of that aspects to our product. But that is the kind to obviously increase scalability, to make it more innovative, to make it more relevant, and to actually get people that will share the ownership of this huge task that we're trying to actually achieve,
Mm.
to get more African youth into that STEM pipeline so that we can produce more innovation of our continent because we need it and
Yeah.
we have the potential. We have the potential to do it.
Absolutely. I'm for Africans creating African solutions because we have the skills, we have the intellect. I think our issue might be just the resources and mobilizing some of those things. So I wish you all of the best. This has been such a wonderful chat, and I'm almost sad that it's wrapping up. But I wanted to ask you a question to close off something very off topic. You mentioned that, when you were studying and you were in school, you didn't see yourself getting into science, yet you are here all these years later. But like looking back, what do you think young Viloshnee, if she had chemistry in action, what do you think would have been somewhere in science? Like, is there a particular field or area that you think you would have maybe detoured in?
Oh, wow. Um,
I threw you
you
off
mean
there a
not
little
sci
bit.
you mean not sciencey, nothing sciencey.
No, like, is there
Oh,
like
in science.
maybe like in science, because you've now exposed to a lot of different science careers where you're like, oh, this might be really exciting. Is there something that you're like, ah, this might have been fun to do if I knew that it was something accessible?
Actually, I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna stick with chemistry in action.
Hey,
Well, I'm a geologist, right? So
yeah.
geology
Oh,
is the earth,
still
and I
science.
love,
Yes.
yeah, still sciencey. And I just feel that, it really helps me to make a meaningful difference. Chemistry in action really gives me the opportunity to transform science education, to help transform communities. And in Africa, the Ubuntu concept, I think, it really helps the individual, the community, and the entire environment. So I think it's a good stepping lever stone to actually achieve the kind of Africa we all want. So I'm going to stick with chemistry.
I love that. I love that. You're like, listen, Anne, I'll pick it all over again. No, as you should, because I mean, if you didn't, so many other people's lives would not have been positively affected. So, that's a brilliant choice. Thank you so much, Viloshnee, for chatting with me today and chatting about the incredible work that you do. I learned so much, and I hope that, other people are also inspired. So briefly, how can people get in contact with you if they do want to partner up or if they do want access to these to the tools that you are offering?
Okay, great. Well, firstly, thank you, Anne. Thank you for the opportunity to actually put us out there and chemistry in action. And I hope there is a lot of interest because what we're trying to do is very relevant and it's
Mhm.
and it's value add and we're feeding pipelines. That's what we're trying to do. We want to make sure our STEM pipelines are strong and robust and sustainable. So we have a website. It's www.v4group.co.za, and all the information is on the website, our contact details, some of the projects we've done. So yeah, we'd be happy to for people to engage with us via the website. There's a contact page, and that would probably be the easiest way to get to us. But yeah, we look forward to all the engagement.
Fantastic. Thank you once again. And to everybody else who's tuned in, we do hope that you do reach out if to Viloshnee, or if you know a school or somebody or a teacher who'd really benefit from the work that they're doing, do definitely reach out. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Root of Science podcast with your girl and with an E. Until next time, goodbye.